10 minutes past 8 Central African time, and you're still tuned in to News and Views with me, Salailo Makwidire. And we're going to be kickstarting the show with a rather interesting conversation. South Africa is heading towards another election, the 4th of November. I'm sure you know that by now. And this time, the political field is slightly more crowded. Well, not slightly, crowded more than ever before. The Electoral Commission of South Africa says the number of registered political parties has increased from 508 to, get this, 620. That is 112 additional political parties that are entering an already complex political landscape. Now, on the one hand, this could be seen as a healthy sign for democracy. It may suggest that most South Africans want to participate in the democratic process. They want to organize, they want to challenge established political parties and offer voters alternatives. But there is another question. There's another side to it. Does having more political parties necessarily mean that voters have more meaningful choices? Because when communities are dealing with issues that we all know about, unreliable water supply, failing infrastructure, unemployment, crime, potholes, electricity interruptions, and concerns about corruption, people are not only looking for a new logo, a new slogan, they're looking for leadership, and leadership that can govern and give results. So yeah, we're going to be looking at that conversation. Could this growing number of political parties strengthen democracy by giving smaller communities and overlooked voices a platform, or could it fragment the vote even further and produce more unstable coalitions that could make it harder for municipalities to deliver services? And we'll be speaking to Professor Siphamandla Zondi, who'll be helping us unpack all of this. He's a political analyst and professor at the University of Johannesburg. Professor, good morning and welcome to News and Views. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Good morning, Slylo. Good morning to your listeners.
I want to jump right into it, Prof. I want us to begin with the headline figure here. The number of registered political parties, the IEC yesterday coming out and telling us that it has grown from 508 to around 620. What does that tell you about the current state of South African politics? Is this a sign of a healthy and expanding democracy, or does it point to growing dissatisfaction with the political establishment, if I can call it that?
Yes, and of course, at the same time, about 3 months ago, the IEC unveiled the media campaign and the elections logo for the year. It says, "Get up and show up." Vote. So the increase in number, both of political parties and of, you would see, of the candidates as well, contesting, is a response to getting up and showing up, because we've been saying not enough voters are going out, but not enough platforms are there for voters to get out there. So the increase will invariably accompany that growth that we're looking for, and that is positive for the elections, positive for the IEC, that there's a lot more platforms that are contesting this space, and this space is not unvaried. It's about the same issues that are known by everybody, and so the political platforms are offering to tackle all these well-known challenges that we face at the local level.
Prof, I want us to go for a quick break, but when we come back, I want us to look at what is behind this increase in political parties. Is it issues of ideology? Is it policy? Or is it just personality politics that we're so used to here in South Africa? Because I'm sure there's a lot of factors. I don't think there's any democracy in the world that has almost 620 political parties. I want to look at the reasons and why we find ourselves where we do, but we're going to do that after this short break.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Right now, over 150 million children around the world are orphaned, facing hunger, hardship, and uncertainty. With Islamic Relief's Orphan Sponsorship Program, you can provide a child with access to education, nutritious food, essential healthcare, and a safe home. Your sponsorship is not just support, it's hope, security, and a brighter future. Be the reason an orphan child smiles again. Sponsor an orphan today with Islamic Relief.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Are you banking with convenience, transparency, and flexibility? With Al Baraka Bank's transactional banking account, you can enjoy convenient everyday banking designed around your needs. Benefit from zero fees on point-of-sale transactions and manage your banking easily through Al Baraka's secure mobile banking app and internet banking platform. From everyday payments to managing your personal or business banking, Al Baraka makes banking simple, transparent, and convenient. Visit albaraka.co.za to learn more. Al Baraka, your partner bank. Al Baraka Bank Limited is an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
17 minutes past 8 Central African time, and I'm still in conversation with Professor Siphamandla Zondi, who's a political analyst and a professor at the University of Johannesburg. And we talk about South Africa's political landscape, which has become increasingly crowded. The IEC coming out and announcing that political parties have risen from 508 to 620. This is ahead of the November 2026 local government elections. And Prof, thank you so much for staying with us. Before we went on to that short break, I wanted to just chat briefly about what could be driving this increase in political parties in the country. South Africa already has a highly competitive political environment. What do you think is driving this increase? Are people forming new parties because they see genuine gaps in representation, or because they believe there is political space that could be occupied?
There is something that we long known. There is an increase in political parties with every election. Each year. So there is there is a natural progression towards increase as more actors come in, because there are two types of actors that come into election processes. One are the voters and the other ones are the contestants.
Mm-hmm.
So they naturally increase all the time, and we'll see more increase in the next election as well after this one. That happens all the time. The second one is the increase in the awareness of the difficulties on the ground. As difficulties grow on the ground, there is greater urge for some to step up and get involved. The third one is an increase in parties at a national level. Think about there's new parties that emerged and came out very strong in the national elections. Your Action SA, your Mzansi, your BOSA and stuff. They then create local level parties. And then lastly, there are local dynamics that happen everywhere. A platform that existed last time, it breaks up into three, and three becomes three different party platforms. And citizens are themselves creating platforms on the ground that are related to a locality of the area. So if there was at some point earlier, they would find that bigger parties, ANCTA especially, would dominate areas, say, for example, like Rustenburg. We find that the whole of Rustenburg is dominated by those three parties. Now we find that a particular part of Rustenburg has a party for Itadile, which for those people there, and then in another community now that they now have their own party. So as local agency grows, then there will be local agents for this local agency.
You know, I'm listening to you speak, and I'm rather concerned, and I'm wondering maybe as South Africans, we should also be concerned because you sound like, or it sounds like this growth is not necessarily driven by ideology and policy, but rather driven by personality. It's driven by local influences you just alluded to, and just general dissatisfaction with existing party leadership. Should we be concerned that, you know, we're not seeing different ideologies, we're just seeing breakaway party upon breakaway party and personalities that feel and seem like they're popular in certain regions deciding that they're going to start political parties, and it's not necessarily about bringing anything that's new and different. It's just copy and paste manifesto from one party to the next?
There are two specific considerations related to that. One is that there's ideology in everything. There's ideology in everything. I mean, if a party comes up and say, our attitude is that roads must be built first. That's an ideological protestation, because it's partly practical, it's partly a ideated choice. That's what it is. The second consideration with regards to that is that if the issues don't change, why should solutions change? The basic thing for the people of the Tabile is that there is no water, there's high unemployment, so the parties will continue to rise on the basis of the ones who were there in the past failed to address this. Give us a chance to try and address it. We think we can address it better and stuff like that. But also opportunism becomes part of the factor. It's always going to be alongside ideological consideration, alongside genuine pragmatism and stuff. And I would really, without having full data about this, I would really suggest that above all factors, it's pragmatism that is driving this, which is people rising up and say, I think I can solve this. I can find practical ways to solve this problem. And alongside then opportunism also comes, because some of the people who say they can solve this, they're simply thinking about income for themselves. And in a situation where we have high unemployment, you should not expect that.
Let's talk about the impact that all of this will be having on the voters. There's a saying that more choice is always better, but in an election, can there be a point where too much choice becomes a bit confusing for voters?
Because it's a local government election, even in a national government election, those 600 and something parties will be in one ballot. It's not going to be like that in this particular case. You find that for someone out in Bangkok and have a ballot paper that has 8 parties for that area. So it's not as congested as it might seem in localities. It's just that IC would give you aggregate number for the entire country, that there's been 8 new political parties per ward or per voting area. But it doesn't translate to all the 8 parties now contesting in that ward, and all the other parties contesting in that ward. So it's not as congested as we think. We're just becoming more localized. The space used to be dominated by national parties, so there will be few parties because they are national. The standard for the registration at national level is higher. The finances required for the registration at national level is higher, so there were few parties. As people lose confidence in national parties, as national parties flop it and they fail it, they give impetus to people disintegrating, the space disintegrating into localized political parties and platforms.
I want to segue a bit and focus on, I know there's 600 and whatever parties, but we know that the dominating ones, and I think over the last couple of weeks, many of them have been announcing mayoral candidates for the biggest metros, the likes of Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg. From your perspective, looking at parties like the ANC, like the DA, Action SA, and the EFF, the notable, most influential ones, how do you think they will fare, going up to the local government elections? Which party do you think is strongly getting momentum, looking at how they've been canvassing so far? And which one do you think could have probably done better? I mean, the ANC has still not presented as their mayoral candidate for the city of Johannesburg, which is very, very concerning.
Yes. But by the way, they've all been declining generally, and they've all been shrinking in the electoral outcome, which is why I think they are now concentrating a lot more in the metros, because the space out there in the hinterland is being taken by smaller actors, by citizens' organizations, by civil society formations that have now taken over that space. So when you talk about them even announcing mayoral candidates, they're not announcing mayoral candidates for local municipalities. They announce mayoral candidates for metros. Of course, the metros are bigger, and of course, the metros are also bigger budget as well. So they're now shrinking to contesting a lot more those than elsewhere. I mean, we've seen it in by-elections how sometimes they're struggling quite badly at the local level, because they now have to contest entities that are very locally based, that are known by the people in their own communities. And these parties take a bet in at the local level for their performance at the national level. All these corruption stories and all these things that we're talking about do harm them. So then they start to hear a particular name that, oh, no, ANC, no. Without measuring them on their local things, because of their national status, they then get discredited at a local level. So we like it now in the nation, then to the metros and stuff like that. We like to see the same trend. The ANC has been declining, the DA is not growing, the EFF remains a change maker, and it seems to me parties like Action SA are likely to grow, and Patriotic Alliance has been growing in the by-election trend and all of that. So those two are likely to grow, and the ANC is likely to remain stagnant, and the DA too remains stagnant, which means you are into those coalition formations, which are either led by the ANC or led by the DA, with kingmakers being either the EFF or the Action SA, or in certain parts of Northern Cape and Western Cape, then also the kingmaker is the PA, the Patriotic Alliance.
And Prof, just one last question before I let you go. With the focus obviously have to be on the ANC, because they are obviously the biggest party. I've mentioned that they haven't announced their mayoral candidate for the city of Johannesburg specifically. There are rumors that Reverend Frank Chikane might be the front runner in that aspect. What do you make of that? What do you make of the ANC going back to the old guard? The post 94 leadership not coming out as strongly, and they have to go back to the stalwarts, anti-apartheid activists, to lead a city of Johannesburg, which is in a lot of trouble, if I can say so myself.
One of the disadvantages of being the dominant party for a long time, both at national and local government elections, is that everybody gets to see your weaknesses more glaringly than anybody else, and that your weaknesses loom a little larger. Especially if, like the ANC, you have scored some successes, but you've also scored some really spectacular failures, such as we've done in the big metros, and the ANC has really not covered that in much glory in Johannesburg, in Tshwane, in Durban, in Bloemfontein, and of course it lost Cape Town long ago.
Mm.
Yeah, so it just has that thing against the wall, the fact that it is declining, and that decline is happening at a local level. It is a really uphill battle for it. So what the ANC is trying to do is that where its name and its brand can no longer bring something, it's looking for the brand of a person that may actually compensate for that. Now, those kinds of people who are a big and positive brand within the ANC are also very few to find, and they too might not pull much, because you are making a speculation about the fact that this brand is still a brand. Because you might find that a person steps up and it turns out they are not a brand anymore, or the local dynamics reject them because they know him nationally, they don't know him locally, or him or her locally. That's what happened when they put forward Tokotitiza as well in Tshwane, a very likable figure, a hard-working national figure and stuff, but it just did not work at the local level. They did not receive her. So it's up against the battle. What the ANC had said is that it had failed to manage its region, Johannesburg region, so well that it has large numbers of leaders and succession that are performing and that are excellent ward councillors and all that, so that those move up to become speakers. But I must say, though, that other parties aren't doing that well as well, because they're also now using national figures in order to contest the metros. And that means they have failed to produce leaders at local level, to produce performance at local level that would convince people that is the right person to that. So they're battling. Almost all of them are battling. Perhaps one that the advantage is Action SA, because that leader has only ever been a city leader and all of that, but now he's their national leader. But he's a city leader, that's where he made his name. So he has that one small advantage over the rest of them. Whoever ANC put forward, whether it puts forward then a figure from the locality, like it has done before, including Tata Morero, who's in now, or it brings in a national figure, it is really fighting an uphill battle, in my view.
There we go. Professor Siphamandla Zondi, political analyst and professor at the University of Johannesburg. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Yeah, interesting conversation there. Political analyst professor at the University of Johannesburg, Siphamandla Zondi, helping us unpack South Africa's rapidly expanding political landscape. And yeah, good luck to you, South Africans. You'll have the final say at the ballot box on the 4th of November, and you have 600 plus political parties to choose from. It's going to be an interesting road leading up to those elections. We're going to take a quick break. News and Views continues after this.